Wanted to kick off our briefing this morning before turning it over to our incident response team and just make a couple brief statements. One is this is one of my first kind of major disaster events as mayor, and so really proud of the response so far. Last 24 hours has been really challenging. I just saw a video of Cliff Avenue and 41st Street. On the interstate, it's going over the road. It's incredible. And so the key message that I've just wanted to send throughout this is patience. We need a lot of patience right now from the public, from businesses, patience with the roads, patience with driving through flooded intersections, a lot of stalled cars, a lot of people making bad decisions right now on where they have to go. And so patience is the word of the day right now, and with patience will come safety, and that's really the number one thing we're after is safety in this. So the public does need to know we have the right team in place. We're handling this very well. Some of our folks from Public Works and from PD and Fire are going to talk a little bit about some of the precautions we've taken. But over the next 24 hours, it's also very important. We know we have a lot of homes that are affected by this, having a lot of homeowners and citizens reach out to our office wanting to know what the city's response is going to be to this. We're working through all that. But we've had historic flood levels right now in some areas where we're seeing water higher than it's ever been. And so the response has been as good as it can be. But we're definitely not out of the woods yet, and there's a lot of work to be done in not only the days ahead, but the weeks and months ahead from this. So with that, I want to turn it over to the incident response team for the city. We're going to start with Todd Heitkamp from the National Weather Service, and he's going to give us kind of update on what we're looking at for the next 24 hours here. So thanks, Todd.
Okay. For the record, my name is Todd Heitkamp, spelled H-E-I-T-K-A-M-P. I'm the meteorologist in charge for the National Weather Service in Sioux Falls. And to emphasize what the mayor has already said, that this has been a historic storm in many locations, even within here in the city of Sioux Falls. We have broken a previous record as far as the river stage is concerned on the Big Sioux at Western Avenue. That record stage is at 17.1. The previous record was 16.01 feet, was set back in 1957 on June 17th. So, a lot of people said, how can we get that high? Well, when you have, widespread rainfall amounts of 2 to 3 inches within the city limits, within the flood control system, and we have on significant snowpack like we have, you're going to be dealing with a lot of water situations, and that's what we dealt with for the past, let's say, 12 to 18 hours. The good news is, a lot of those stages are falling. As I came in this morning, they're already falling from what they were at the record levels. So that's the good news, is that with time, as Mayor said, with patience, the levels will continue to fall because we're not expecting any additional substantial precipitation. In other words, not much more rainfall. Obviously we're going to get snow yet today, maybe a couple of inches, but that's not going to add much precipitation to the water system already that we have in place. I think the other concern that we have today is going to be the winds. We're looking at winds gusting as high as 60 to 65 miles an hour. So anyone that's doing any work outside or anything like that, be aware of that. But as far as rainfall is concerned, the good thing is there's drier days ahead of us. So when looking at the next 5 to 7 days, it looks pretty dry out there. So a lot of that water is going to have a chance to recede. I will tell you that there's still a lot of water to our north. In the Del Rapids area, that still has to come down. The good thing is that's not going to infiltrate most of the city. The eastern half of the city, let's say lower than the falls, is probably going to have a little bit of rising water between, let's say, Sioux Falls and Brandon. But within the city, within the system, the levels shouldn't get any higher than what they already have been this morning. I will also mention that we are also impacted to the National Weather Service. Our phone system is out. So we're able to make contact with our partners, our emergency management partners and the media partners via cell phone, but that has impacted our weather radio transmitters across our area, that our broadcast is not on air at this point in time. We're working on it with Verizon, and hopefully that the problem will be rectified. But I have to emphasize and make sure that people have other methods to receive warning information or safety information other than just weather radio. The media websites, weather apps on your cell phone. All that come into play on a day like today when some systems have problems. But we hopefully will have that rectified by the end of business today. Okay?
You couldn't go so far to say this is the worst flooding the city has seen in some parts?
No. I'm not going to say that at all. I think there's been a lot higher levels than what we're experiencing right now. There's just certain stages where that have reached record levels. But Skunk Creek has come close to that record today, but it still remains second. Okay? And I'll answer any questions after everyone else is done.
Thank you, Todd. I'm Mark Cotter with Public Works, and between Andy Berg and Andy's our environmental stormwater manager. I'll try to give you a perspective on some of the risks that we're currently managing. Probably first thing is over my shoulder is a map that you're going to see us update on Twitter, and probably the best place to go get it is the city's website. It's an interactive map that can give you a perspective of where some of those road closures are. Primarily, the road closures are a combination of two things. It's either where the water has gotten so high that it's surpassed the height of the road and it's overflowing the road, or we've got pumping operations that's trying to force the water from one side of the road to the other. In some of these areas that normally free drain when there's no ice and snow that's in the ditches and the drainage channels, they would just normally pass under the roads. If you look at the west side of town where you got this cluster of dots, that's an area where it's close to Skunk Creek. Skunk Creek is what Todd just mentioned that's running at historic highs. We've got a number of areas in there where we've got generally rural section streets, so no curb and gutter, they're just asphalt roads, and then the water essentially gets through them by culverts. So we're assisting that water to get it out of those neighborhoods and ultimately into Skunk Creek. As you move your way through this 41st and Shirley and 41st and Louise, down along Louise, and then on 43rd Street, there's that entire storm drainage system is full, and it would normally free drain out into the river. The river is running so high right now, and so we are down there pumping water over a levee as we speak as well to make sure we can evacuate that storm water. Those are our top priorities where you see these dots on a map so we can restore the transportation system. If you see a road that's starting to get overtaken by water, you can certainly call the non-emergent number at 367-7000, and then we'll log that. We've got our incident management team that's in place that can continually get those calls and update the entire team on where we're seeing risks throughout the city. The other critical item that we're managing right now is high wastewater flows, and so there's, typically the only thing we want in the wastewater system is what's coming from the homes and the businesses, from toilet, showers. One of the things that everyone can really help us on right now is to limit their water usage through Friday, and also to ensure that if they are getting water in their house via their sump pump, to make sure that that sump pump is discharged outside. Preferably just pull the hose out and put it on the driveway so that water can free drain down the driveway, down the street, and ultimately into the storm drainage system. Everything we can do right now to protect the wastewater system that's running over twice what its normal flows are would give us a significant benefit and make sure that we can protect that infrastructure. We do have 2 lift stations. Lift stations are essentially where you use gravity flow as much as you can, but at some certain points in time when the sewer gets so deep, you pick it up and you force it to the next location. In a pipe, we've got 2 lift stations that the water's rising high on, and so we're taking precautionary steps that Andy will talk about to make sure we protect those structures as well. If we get into a situation where somebody believes that the wastewater in that area has exceeded the piping limits and you believe you've got a sewer backup, the number to contact us on sewer backups is 367-8198. 8198. We did have an area on the north end of town last night where we believe we've got 2 confirmed sanitary sewer backups that we'll be working with those property owners on as well. Those are the 2 main areas that we're focused on. Transportation and the storm drainage system are combined into one, and then the second is the wastewater system. So now I'll bring up Andy Berg. He's our environmental stormwater manager to give you some additional facts. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Mark. Andy Berg, Environmental Stormwater Manager for City's Public Works Department. As has been mentioned already, the main stormwater impact is the high river flows. Skunk Creek is at the second highest in the city, and the Western Avenue gauge of the Big Sioux is at its highest. When it gets up that high, we have our stormwater outfall that comes into the river that drains all of our city storm drains and inlets. There are flap gates on those pipes when they cross into the river through the levee system. When the river is up, those flap gates do not open. It's there to protect people behind the river, behind the levee, from those river flows going back into the neighborhoods. The negative to that is the flows in the storm sewer can't get out. So we have pumps out in various locations around the city to evacuate that water as fast as we can to get it out over the levee system and into the river. Unfortunately, the accumulation a lot of times is faster than what our pumps can do, but our pumps have been running through a chunk of the night and all day today, so we will continue those efforts until levels have receded to a safe level. Sandbagging, we've had a lot of requests for sandbags. We reserve our sandbags for protection of our critical infrastructure. As Mark mentioned, we have lift stations around town. Many of those lift stations are located in low areas adjacent to the rivers. To protect those, a lot of times we need to sandbag around them. Those efforts are currently in progress. On a smaller lift station, we're looking at a larger one that may need that as well. Those areas are our highest priority. We need to keep our sandbags for those uses to protect the critical infrastructure. We recommend that folks, residents, would go out and obtain sandbags on their own if they feel the need to do that. Let's see here. The last thing I would have is, as Mark said, sump pump discharge is a big issue. Getting that outside of your house is important, and it's equally important with the snow that we still have in place to get it flowing away from your house so that it is not just running right back down in the ground and into your sump again. We don't want to recycle that. You want to get it out and have it flow away, just like with your downspouts as well. Regan Smith will be up next.
Regan Smith, Emergency Manager, City of Sioux Falls. Just got some updates on different city services and how they've been affected. First of all, the Cali Branch Library is closed today. Also, bookmobile services are also closed due to effects of the flooding. The parks, obviously sections along the Greenway, parks, the bike trail system, park roads, walkways are inundated, and so we're asking, they're closed, temporarily closed. We're asking people to not visit those parks, probably the next few days until those things come out of the water and they can be safe. We're asking people to use extra caution around that moving water. Don't walk through standing water. Don't drive around those barricades. Don't drive through those flooded intersections, whether it's a street or an intersection. Please don't do that. We've made a number of water rescues already, and so whether it's people in their neighborhoods, neighborhood kids, people visiting the parks, again, motorists, we want everybody to be safe. So far, we've not had any tragedies, and we really want to keep it that way. It's just use some good common sense. As the mayor said, use some patience. Eventually, things will return to normal, and at that time, they can take their normal route to work and visit those parks. For the people that are cleaning up their basements, we want them to take some precautions for their own personal health. Definitely take their time, stay hydrated, don't overexert themselves. It's kind of a stressful thing when that happens. Wear personal protective gear, gloves, rubber boots. You shouldn't be exposing your skin to that flood water. And then after they've removed that damaged carpet and that water, we want them to mix a cup of common household bleach with a gallon of water, and that's a effective cleaning solution to clean those surfaces that have been contaminated. And again, after they're done cleaning up, do a good job washing their hands, take a shower with soap and water to make sure that happens. And then if you've got children, again, if you're cleaning your house, keep them out of it or protect them also. All right, anybody else, Sandy? Or? Oh, yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Jason Gearman, Minnehaha County Emergency Management. I'm not going to reiterate what Reagan or the others said. I think we've done plenty of that, don't go through the water, and et cetera. We have, the county has conducted a few water rescues, and they're currently out on one right now. One was from somebody driving through past a barricade and into the water. Hartford Fire assisted on that along with our volunteer rescue squad. They're currently out on West 12th, which is part of the county, 7,000 block, helping get people out of houses. Obviously, there's the same situation out in the county, but a lot broader scale, I guess. There's been roads closed throughout the county. The county quickly ran out of barricades, so we just ask people to use caution and again, don't go through the water. You never know what's underneath it, and you don't know how fast that's flowing. If you step out of your vehicle, you may be swept away. It's best to stay in it until we can get somebody there to help you. Just before I walked in here, I did receive some information from the deputies that are out checking roads that some of the roads that were underwater in the northern and northwestern part of the county have now, the roads are open. There may still be barricades there. They're in the process of picking them up and moving them to where they're more needed. I don't know if you have any questions specific to the county. As far as the sandbags go, we've had lots of requests from sandbags. The county does not provide sandbags to the public. Again, it's for our infrastructure. However, they may want to contact townships or the city that they live in. They may have sandbags accessible. Otherwise, you're going to have to purchase them on your own. Any questions for me?
Who sells them?
Well, they're out of stock everywhere in Sioux Falls, but Home Depot, Try Biersbach, any kind of construction company that may use sandbags for signs, things like that. It's just everybody's, I think, out of them right now. But
do you have questions for anybody else that was here? Because I can bring them back up.
I was just wondering, do we know, have the city people been compliant as far as lowering their water usage and that kind of thing?
The question was, have we started to see some water rates go down? We have. We started to actually make up some room in the system. It's not a lot, but anything helps, and so we were at about 46 million gallons of wastewater going through the plant last night around 9:30, and over the course of getting through that evening peak, we started to see that go back to about 44, and so any of that space in the system really helps. And if people can extend that now through the end of the day Friday, that would provide a significant benefit to us. So thank you.
Oh, I had another question for you also.
Okay.
Do you feel that the snow gates are causing any of the flooding issues because the snow is pushed to the side and not completely cleared curb to curb?
We had with the event that happened last Saturday, we first went out and opened up the intakes on 40 just really critical historic areas that we've seen ponding before. We have, I would say probably the larger factor that's happened this winter is we just haven't had any melting. We typically get some snow and then it'll melt back. We'll get snow and it'll melt back. I'm just really happy with the crews and the private contractors that worked essentially from Saturday through the start of this event. And for the most part, the storm sewer system is working really well. We've got just almost 12,000 stormwater inlets. And not only was the city teams, the private contractors, there's a number of homeowners that also went out and opened up their storm drains. And so that, I would not say that, there's a factor with snow gates. It's probably a larger discussion about the type of winter that we've had, the activity that we've had, and we've had a lack of any level of melting before the first rain. So.
There's some homeowners on the west side of the city, the specific places on La Mesa. They're saying that their homes are flooded, and that La Mesa was redone like 1 or 2 years ago by the city, and that the drainage system on that street was taken out. Are you aware of that at all? Is that why that area is flooding?
No, that area just generally has rural section streets, and so what rural section streets are is just a paved surface, and then the culverts that either go under the driveways or cross underneath the roads. That's the drainage system, and anytime we normally do a project, we make sure that the current system is functioning. We would never take out a drainage system. It's a critical part of the neighborhood. We've actually have active pumping teams up there right now. It's just one of the biggest challenges right now is the ground's froze, and so when you get nearly 3 inches of rain and then you have snow that hasn't melted, those culverts are not functioning as they would in normal time. So, but that La Mesa area is the positive part for it is it's up fairly high, and so we were able to actually get some pumping activities in those ditches, pump it over the road, and then it'll go into Skunk Creek. The other benefit of Skunk Creek is it's running at historic levels, but it only is a fairly short watershed, so it only goes from Sioux Falls up to Chester, and so we'll see this peak come through, and then we'll see it steadily reduce over a fairly fast time, much different than the Big Sioux that stretches, north of Watertown.
One more hard question, I'm sorry, Mark.
Sure.
I know it's early yet, but can we talk about expense or tell us about your budget for these emergencies and talk a little bit about the price tag?
Yeah, well, this is, we just come through winter season. Now we're going into what I'll call wet season, so we're in the melt. And, for the most part, we know there's going to be peak times based on historical budgets that we budget for. I would say right now we're still within our normal range. There are activities that hit cities all across the Midwest that we know that certain activities, whether it's snow, flood fighting, protecting the wastewater system, is going to take us into 12-hour shifts around the clock. And with multiple utilities working together, today I don't see a budget issue to address.
Is the city running low on barricades?
The city is running very low on barricades. There's just so many different impacts out there. And so we've been very appreciative of the police team because they've gone out there and supplemented closing roads for us until we can get teams there and supplement. We've also, I know the engineering team has about 15 people out helping also block roads today. I can't stress it enough, don't drive around those barricades. When roads get undertaken by a lot of flow, especially in the county, they start to wash out over a period of time, and so you may have been able to drive through it once, you may not be able to drive back through it, and so just take extra precautions. I feel like we'll recover with these high flows at a reasonable period of time, and then we'll get things restored.
Is there a concern if the winds start blowing really hard and it snows, it creates some visibility issues that people might not be able to see if the road is washed out or anything like that? Is that a concern?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're expecting high winds and up to 2 inches of snow today, so especially on the outside of town, their visibility could certainly be a factor.
Are you concerned about the snow clogging or reclogging those storm drains again?
Not with this much. Not with only an inch or two coming. I think it should be just fine.
How long do you think you guys will be out there pumping or have crews out?
Oh, I expect we'll be pumping for at least probably the next 48 hours. And one of the things that will really start to benefit us is once we get an area pumped down, because we're pumping in multiple locations right now. Once we get an area recovered, then we'll move those pumps to the next highest priority. So it will become kind of a snowball effect, if you will, that more equipment will start to coalesce and then we're bringing in additional pumps as we speak. And so there's just a significant amount of water running in the river channel that's just really requiring us to force a lot more stormwater over the levee system.
This might be a question for someone else, I'm not
Okay.
really sure. The Big Sioux River, is that, how long will that take to recede to normal levels? Is that a Todd question?
I guess the question is how long will it take for the Big Sioux to go back to normal? I guess the question is what is normal? We're long from being over with this. This is just one event. We still have all the water yet to our north that has to come down through the system yet. Watertown and those areas in the watershed areas really have to make their way down. So it's going to be a while. It's going to be a long spring, as I think Mark talked about. This drier weather coming up over the next 5 to 7 days will definitely help with that. We have a gradual warming, melting process up in those locations. That will also help. So that's what we can hope and pray for. It's just a little, gradual warming process to allow that water to slowly get into the system and get out of the system as quickly as possible. But we can't let our guard down. We still got a good month ahead of us yet. If Mother Nature cooperates, we should make it through okay.
You telling people to stay away from all city parks then, essentially? And maybe, the fact that people might want to check out the falls to see what they look like. That's going to be
I would really caution against that. Definitely the parks along the Greenway, along the river, with that fast-moving water, the ice, things like that. I just ask people take a few days off. There's a lot of other parks that aren't affected that they can go visit and utilize. And once we're through this, they can do that. But if they are, definitely use caution. Fire is staffed up to deal with those things if they happen. But we'd rather not have to go. Frankly, it's just we want people to use good judgment, good common sense, and wait a few days.
Imagine the current at Falls Park's got to be pretty dangerous right now.
It is. The currents, the ice flows, if they fall in there without those water temps, I would expect a tragedy.
Regan, no offense, you've been around a while, like myself. Can you quantify this emergency, from last summer storms, 2011 flooding, ice storm, what level of
it's getting up there. Definitely as far as the impacts to public infrastructure has been very great, to our transportation system, to homeowners, water in basements. We've seen this before, that type of thing. But yes, it's definitely in my 20-year career. It's getting up to be in the top 5 for sure.
Regan, do you know how many water rescues you guys have had to do?
Just a handful at this time, but I know this morning has been very active.
Andy, can you talk about, are we pretty far away from using, I can't think of the name right now, but I did a story with you last year about like the concrete barriers over on Sioux Street North, where are we pretty far away from using those? How close are we to putting up that infrastructure?
The question was, how are we close to having to utilize our closure structures for our flood control system, our levee system? This event will not trigger the need for that. As they've mentioned, Skunk Creek's already peaked and coming down, and those closure structures are for a higher flow rate than what we had. And then, as Todd mentioned, the weather pattern for the Big Sioux melt is a big factor. If we were to get extremely warm temperatures and a fast melt with possibly a precip event on top of it, and Big Sioux River flows were very high, that would trigger the use of our flood control system. Certainly hope to not see that, but we have it ready. It's ready to go at a moment's notice if the need arises.
And between all of you guys, do you know a number of city workers, county workers that are out right now helping with this event that we're having to make sure that with those hundreds?
Yeah, hundreds.
Isn't the mayor still here?
Yeah, it's right here.
Mayor Tenenkin, you called this a disaster in the beginning. Why did you use that term and when you started things off? What quantifies this to be that?
Well, I think Mark touched on it in that it's just been a very challenging last really 2 months where we haven't had any of the thaw that we normally get that's created this level of flooding. So it's been the perfect storm of conditions that have led up to this. So, we have a lot of homeowners that are being affected by this. And as I was out in the hall, I'm texting with Governor Noem, and she's asking, are you going to declare? Do you need an emergency declaration? And what do you need from us? And we're not ready to do that yet, but we have to, see the impact of the storm. So when you're texting and talking with the governor on that level, it's serious and it's a big event for the city. And so we've handled it well, but the next 12, 24 hours are going to be really important in determining if we do have to go that route with the state.
What are some of the factors that would go into the system?
I would default to Regan on that. Yeah.
Yeah, Perry. We have a damage assessment process that we partake in here at the city with Minnehaha and Lincoln County, and obviously we've been in contact with the State Office of Emergency Management. But not right now. We're still in the response mode. But in the days to follow, we will track damages to the public infrastructure, roads, water wreck, stormwater system, those type of things, all of our response costs, all of those type of things. And then if there is significant damage to residences, and that threshold is very high. But again, we'll be working with the State Office of Emergency Management to track those, discuss those losses with Minnehaha and Lincoln County, and decide whether there is enough damage to warrant asking for assistance from the counties and the state of South Dakota.
What would that assistance be? Is that financial assistance? Or
Right. Financial assistance for, again, public infrastructure, things that were approximately caused by this flooding and these incidents, to the roads, again, to the sewer systems, storm system, and then the overall response. Again, from Public Works, police and fire, and other responders.
Would that be money from the state, or is that federal funds?
Well, we would request that the city of Sioux Falls obviously can't go straight to the federal government. We ask for assistance from the counties, and then work through them for a declaration of the state, and then the state assists local jurisdictions in South Dakota, and if there is if it warrants statewide, then the governor has the option to pursue a declaration from the federal government.
When would we utilize, if needed, our Army National Guard troops and things like that?
At this point, I don't anticipate we are. We already have mutual aid, automatic mutual aid with South Dakota Army, or excuse me, automatic mutual aid with the South Dakota Air Guards Fire Department, and they've been part of our responses today as they are every day. They're part of our normal mutual aid there. So, but at this point, I don't think we've really identified any needs, emergency needs from state resources. I'm not saying that that might not happen, depending on what happens in the next, again, 48 hours. But we've looked at that between city resources, county resources, and private. We've met our needs.
This might be a question for Sam. I don't really know, but are these drivers who are going through the water, do they get tickets at all, or is there any punishment for it?
Join the fun, Sam.
I guess. The short answer is I don't know. I don't know if we've been ticketing. Certainly there are state laws and city ordinances that would cover that. Once a barricade is in place, the driver is prohibited from driving around that. We have seen that before, different situations, and people have been ticketed in the past. Most of the time, I'm guessing that if people are driving past barricades now, they're probably getting their car stuck, and I can't see that we'd probably be writing tickets in that situation. I think that's probably, they've incurred enough damages on their own, but I don't have an answer for that. But certainly there is some mechanism in place if there's officers that see people driving past a barricade, they could receive a ticket.